All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into this week's interview. We had a very fun interview with Acceleration Nation's Andrew Kurland. Andrew's a friend of Josh, and Josh introduced us to him this week. I know you guys will enjoy this, but let's go and give a shout out to this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor for the interview is Casper Mattresses. Get the sleep you've always dreamed of. Casper's award winning mattresses, sheets, and more are quality, crafted, and ethically built in the USA. Get $100 off for every $1,000 you spend. Save big and sleep better with Casper. 100-night free trial, limited time only. Get yours today at Casper.com. Once again, Casper.com. Let's get to the interview.
And I'm not saying no, but I need you to go, 'cause you know what I like in the devil inside. Work on us one more time.
All right, and welcome back. Today we have NASCAR Acceleration Nation's Andrew Kurland. Andrew, welcome. Could you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So, me and you have been friends for a couple years, met up at Martinsville, and saw you on Twitter. And I DM'd you. I was like, hey, let's meet up. We were both friends with Jason. So, we met up there, kind of been friends ever since and talked almost every day in different group chats. So, you started off with the checkered flag crew. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I always like looking back at that Martinsville race and being like, man, that was just the start. But yeah, no, started on my own back in 2014. It's kind of crazy to be all the way in 2020 and look back at those days. But basically, how I started was I had a microphone and a camera and a hot pass at the 2014 Daytona 500, and that was it. There was no official media credential process about it. And I basically just went around the garage and ambushed people with, that microphone and camera, asking them one question. The whole video maybe lasted 15 seconds. I didn't know what to do, and I kind of ran off. So I did that for a couple of races. I went to the Brickyard that year, went to Chicagoland, went to Kansas in the playoffs, and kind of started to evolve more myself in getting better equipment, asking better questions, putting a uniform together. And that ultimately became the checkered flag crew. And NASCAR came to us and they wanted to officially credential us for that next season. And I guess the rest is history, evolving every year and kind of getting new opportunities every year and learning new things every year. And it's been a fun road for sure.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a blast. Talking to Tyler and Jason, it's been quite some time since you were able to go to a race as a fan and you weren't working it.
Yeah, I think last time I went to a race as a fan was 2014. There was one day Chicagoland. We actually ran into a little bit of an issue where NASCAR saw we weren't credentialed and said, "Hey, you can't be filming in the garage. You can't be doing this the next day." And that was race day the next day. So the last time I went to a race as a fan was Chicagoland in 2014, and it's kind of crazy to think that.
Wow, that's insane. You said your first race that you were able to go in with the checkered flag crew was a Daytona 500. What an experience to go out there and get your start at such a prestigious race. So you've been to a bunch of races since then. Explain to people like who haven't been to a Daytona 500 what it feels like on race day compared to every other race day.
Yeah, I know. I think you can go if you went to 35 of the 36 races in the NASCAR season and the only one you missed was the Daytona 500, I would say you'd be missing out because the Daytona 500 atmosphere is unlike anything else. And I honestly think, and it's such a shame how it worked out, if we didn't get rain this year, I thought it was probably the most anticipated, most built up Daytona 500 that I've ever experienced. You wake up, and even in the hotel room, you just know it's something special. And all day throughout pre race and just seeing crew members in the garage getting their cars prepared, you know it's something special. You know it's a big deal. The crowds are unlike anything I've ever seen before at a NASCAR race, any other event, and just all day, it's something marquee, it's something special, and I guess to kind of go back and make it full circle, it was pretty special to be able to kind of start my NASCAR career on the biggest race of the year, the Daytona 500.
Yeah, for sure. I was able to go back in 2016, and like you said, the atmosphere is unlike anything else. I've been to a couple tracks, Charlotte, Darlington, Dover, but nothing compares to just the atmosphere walking into stands as a fan for Daytona. And all right, Henry, you got a question?
Yeah, Andrew. So I've been in the infield, worked for Talladega Superspeedway back in 2019, and got to spend some time in the pits during the race, which was new to me because usually I spend my time up in the stands as a regular fan. But when you're covering the races and during the race, I know that there's not a lot of space to sit down there or kind of observe the race. But where's your go-to spot when you're covering a race to kind of camp out for a while?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'm the kind of person just in general in life, I can't sit still, you know. So I can't find one spot and one seat to find and sit and watch a race. I love pit road, and that's usually the place where I like to walk up and down, scan the driver channels, and I think it's really interesting for me to try and put myself in the shoes of a pit reporter. You know, that's ultimately the goal for myself, is to be working on pit road down with NBC or MRN or Fox broadcast. So I'm trying to listen to all the driver communications, driver radio, and pick apart and see what's the most important information you can get from that. So I would say pit road is probably my favorite, but I also love, especially new tracks, to go out and enjoy and trying to explore and find different places to go.
So would you consider yourself to be Acceleration Nation's uh, Claire B. Lang, if you will, with your news coverage during the race weekend?
You know, I think she's a good example. I would say I strive to be a little bit more like the Rutledge Wood esque kind of person, getting a little bit more human interest side of people. You know, I would say Rutledge Wood and even Marty Smith are the two guys that I aspire to be most like, and try and really get the human aspect out of some of these drivers, and put some fun elements to the videos as well. But you know, I think Claire B. Lang from a certain coverage perspective is also a good comparison.
Yeah, I love your funny videos you do on Twitter. You always sending us like the funny clip bits of like where you put a blindfold somebody, the blindfold challenge. Those are definitely my favorite that you send us because you get some pretty funny answers. But we talked about it on Twitter the other day that Dale Jr. responded to your tweet. He quote tweeted you, and y'all had like a little conversation. What's it like getting these the biggest name drivers in the sport come and notice you? And I've talked about people with you or constantly in the media center, and I bring up, Andrew Kurland. They're like, yeah, he's gonna be great. What's it like getting that kind of name and recognition out there?
You know, I'm still not used to it, and especially the past couple of weeks, there's been progressing conversations with NASCAR and the direction we're going to finish off this year, and even 2 3 years down the road. And every time I turn to my dad, because we talk about all this all the time. It's just like you can't ever believe it. You know, it never really it settles in. But it's been probably my favorite part, and even some of the people that you wouldn't even know. My favorite part about NASCAR and going to the races, and what's so painful about not being there during a pandemic is the people in the sport. You know, I when people say NASCAR truly is a family, it really, really is, and the sense of community you get in the sport is unlike anything else. And to be able to establish relationships with Dale Jr. and Jimmy Johnson, and to have casual conversations with them, and get their advice on certain things has been unbelievable. Jimmy Johnson, he's quite the fitness fanatic, and I recently tried to partake in running a half marathon, and I remember having conversations with Jimmy on different types of advice he'd give me, and he gave me some advice on hydrating and a workout plan. And it's certain things like that where you can just have a conversation with these guys, which, I mean, at the end of the day, they're normal people, and it's cool to have just normal people conversations with them.
For sure. I'm so jealous of everything that you got going on.
So Andrew, do you follow any local short tracks in your area, or went before you got into the big NASCAR scene? Did you keep up with any short tracks or do any writing on races locally to you?
That's one of the things that I wish I did, but in Chicago, we really didn't have any local tracks. You had to go to Joliet to maybe catch a dirt race here or there, or all the way up to Wisconsin. So I really did miss out on the short track scene and jumped straight to the NASCAR ranks. But it's actually really funny you mentioned that. There are some local tracks because I'm living in Arizona now to go to school, and there are some Arizona tracks that maybe could be my very first kind of local small short tracks that I get to visit. But I think the one thing I'm missing on my bucket list is to be able to go to a short track and consistently cover it. And it was just an opportunity that just never logistically worked out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and we cou-
Yeah.
couple of weeks ago we talked to the Orange Cone on Twitter. I don't know if you follow him or not, but a question we asked him that I feel would be prudent for our listeners here, because I know a lot of them are possibly interested in getting into NASCAR in a reporter type atmosphere, media, if you will. But what would you say to a aspiring journalist or media fanatic to get into the sport? Do you have any tips that you would want to send their way?
Yeah, I think what really worked for me and what I'm still trying to master right now, and I don't know if you can ever quite master anything in this field, but at least what I've always tried to work with, my dad gave me this great advice was, you know, at this point when you're trying to get into the sport, you want to stand out in a unique way. There's going to be 100 people talking about what's going on in the race. Hey, how's your car doing? And he told me ask different questions, try and be different, get different stories. And I've been chasing that advice ever since. So when we do things like the blindfold challenge or word sneak or just some of these fun lighthearted games, at least to me, I think I'm the only one in the garage doing that. And to kind of build that as my own brand has been probably what's given me the most success so far, is just to be able to do different things and tell a different story that other people, those mainstream journalists who, you're going to look for. I'm always going to look to Jeff Gluck, Bob Pockris for information on the racing, but maybe someone will look to me to kind of get a different side and different viewpoint of NASCAR. So I would guess and say that building a brand like that and being your own unique self is at least what has been most beneficial to me so far.
So, you've been to a bunch of different tracks, covering a lot of different races, but I got one question for you. What track has the best food in the media center?
Oh, that is so easy. Texas Motor Speedway. They have the most unbelievable nacho bar and beef brisket. Literally, they'll announce the nacho bar is open and the line is every single media member. It's almost like you forget a race is going on and you need to secure your spot for the nacho line. It's hilarious.
Who's got the worst food that you've been to?
Oh, I don't know. I would say just some of the tracks that just recycle or cater the same food, or when it's only one option. I don't know. I guess the good ones stand out and then the rest just kind of blend together.
Oh, I understand that one. But let's get into hot takes and dark horses. Dark horse champion and a hot take that you have for the rest of the NASCAR Cup Series season.
Okay. Dark horse champion. I don't know. I would say he's probably dark horse just because he hasn't won a championship yet. He's a little bit further back in the playoff standings. I think people would be jump quick to say Harvick or Hamlin as their champion. I'll go with Chase Elliott hoisting the trophy at the end of the year. He's always good in the playoffs, and when it comes down to the end, man, he's been good at Phoenix these last couple of years, and I think if he can get there, he has a chance to challenge Hamlin and Harvick, who I would assume would also make it to Phoenix for the championship race. Do you think that's? I don't know. I think that's a dark horse, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say it's a dark horse because it's not one of the top four major drivers that we're talking about. Penske or a JGR. We've seen Hendrick struggle recently, so that's definitely a dark horse.
Yeah. And then hot take. I've been looking at the playoff standings here, and I guess maybe a bold hot take could be that Kyle Busch doesn't make it out of the first round. Personally, I think he makes it through. But okay, how about this? Because I'll stand with my word on the hot take here. Kyle Busch makes it to the round of 12, but does not make it to the round of 8. I think that is going to be my hot take for the playoffs.
That's crazy. Last year's champion not being able to make it out of the round of 12 is something that not many people saw coming into the season, but now looking at it, he still hasn't got a win, and he's got 2 playoff points to his name. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast, Andrew. It was a great time talking to you. Where can we find you on social medias?
Oh, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Kurland TV, on Instagram at Andrew Kurland, and Henry, Josh, and Jay, man, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming
sure.
on. It was a blast.
It was a
Love
pleasure,
to have you
Andrew.
back sometime.
And I'm not saying no, but I need you to go, 'cause you know